Over the past few weeks, on my TikTok and on my Facebook pages, I've been posting some videos. And in those videos, I was sharing some of my thoughts. I was sharing some of my thoughts about overgiving. I was sharing about how I feel like we should love ourselves just as much as we love our neighbors or how much we love others. I introduced this concept of the vessel, and I talked about what we carry in that vessel. I talked about what we allow to leak out of that vessel. I talked about what we pour out of that vessel. And then I talked about what happens when we allow that vessel to become depleted or when the vessel is empty. And in the last video, I introduced my new devotional, which is called VesselWork. And I invited you to come over here to my YouTube page so that I could walk you through the full framework. So that's the purpose of this video today. I'm going to introduce what I call VesselWork, and I'm going to begin teaching from that framework today. And then as we go forward on subsequent videos, I'm going to start teaching more and more from the devotional. So I want to start with the basics. So let's get into it. Now, to teach VesselWork, what I'm actually going to do is teach it from my website. So you can see my website here. You can see the VesselWork devotional right there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my homepage. So if you go to drangelamitchell.com, so that's DRANGELAMITCHELL.com, that will take you to my website. And once you get there, if you'll navigate to the programs menu, drop down, and then if you go to the VesselWork framework, that's where I'm going to be talking from today. And so this is the VesselWork framework. There's the devotional right there. If you're interested in getting that, feel free to shop that journal from my website. But this is kind of where I want to park. This is where I want to start teaching from. Okay. Basically, the central premise of VesselWork is super, super simple. The bottom line is that you can't sustainably pour from a vessel or a container that has cracks in it. You can't do it. In psychology, in faith communities, and even in leadership culture, we often celebrate resilience and service. We love when people give, but we rarely stop and examine the condition or what's going on with the person who's actually doing the giving. We ask people to pour all the time, but we don't ask them whether their vessel is cracked, whether it's depleted, or we don't ask them if they're exhausted. And so the purpose of VesselWork is to interrupt that pattern. The basic premise is that healing should come before we have any expectation of a person giving of themselves. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what exactly is the vessel. So I'm going to scroll up just a little bit. So when I talk about the vessel, I'm not talking about something abstract or mystical. I'm talking about something very, very concrete, because the vessel is you. Okay. As you can see here, the vessel is your whole internal system. It's your emotional capacity. It's your nervous system, your spiritual life, your identity. It's your boundaries or lack thereof. And it's your physical body. All of those things come together to form the container through which your essence or your life flows. So I'm going to give you some real practical examples because I want this to be real for you guys. Let's talk first about emotional capacity. What is emotional capacity? It's basically how much stress, how much responsibility, and how many relational demands you can hold before you just can't take anymore and you become overwhelmed. For example, let's say that you're the person that everybody comes to when they're struggling. Your friends call you. Your coworkers lean on you when there's a problem at work. Your family expects you to hold everything together and they expect everything from you. But inside, you might be thinking, all these people want me to do all these things, but I don't even have space to process my own life. That right there is a vessel capacity issue. You don't have enough capacity. Let's talk about your nervous system. Your nervous system is the biological system that regulates stress, safety, and emotional processing. And there are a lot of people today, y'all, who are out here living with chronically activated nervous systems. They are always overstimulated. They're overworked. They have too many responsibilities, so they're over-responsible. And they're overextended because they keep telling everybody yes when they need to tell people no. They look strong on the outside, but on the inside, their system is constantly in survival mode. constantly. And a vessel that never rests, or a vessel that's always in survival mode, it can't sustain that. It cannot continue in that way. And there's no way that they could ever get to a place of overflow because they're constantly giving out. Let's talk about your spiritual life, because for a lot of people, myself included, we're people of faith. We're women of faith. We're men of faith. And our spiritual life often becomes tied to our service. Some of us might equate faithfulness with self-sacrifice. So it's like, well, as long as I'm giving of myself, I'm considered faithful or I'm righteous. Okay. Some of us equate goodness with availability. Like, you won't tell your ministry lead no. You won't tell your pastor no, even though you got other stuff to do. But you won't tell them no because you've equated your availability with goodness. But spirituality, y'all, is not meant to empty you. It's meant to restore you. So if you feel empty as a result of your service to your church, we got to reevaluate that. Let's look at your identity, because this is another part of your vessel. A lot of people lose themselves inside their roles. This is a big one. We have mothers, we have leaders, we have pastors, caregivers, professionals. And I know this one personally. I can speak to this one personally. This has been my lived experience, because there were seasons in my life when I was doing too much, y'all. I was doing so much for everybody else that I literally had to stop and ask myself, who am I outside of what I do for others? Outside of being a mother to these children, who am I? Outside of being a wife to this husband, who am I? That's a vessel question. And I'm going to encourage you, as we work through these weeks, I'm going to encourage you to ask yourself those questions. Who are you? Look into your identity. And another one that I want to really drive home is boundaries. Boundaries. I had to learn this one the hard way. But once I learned it, it was a game changer. Boundaries determine what your vessel can hold. If you don't have any boundaries, you don't actually have a container, because everything is always flowing out of you. Your time, your energy, your attention, your peace. Oh my goodness, your peace. It's all flowing out of you because you don't have any boundaries. So you have to erect some boundaries if you expect to be able to have a vessel that can operate in overflow. And we're going to get to that in subsequent sessions. There is one more that I want to talk about because it's super important, and that's your body, your physical body. That is part of your vessel. Your sleep. We call it sleep hygiene in psychology. You know, what is your routine when it comes to sleep? Are you getting enough sleep? What do you do when it's time for you to go to sleep? Are you getting enough rest? Your health. Are you taking care of your basic health? Are you getting your annual exams? Are you taking care of your teeth? Are you making sure that your health, you're taking your supplements, you're watching your diet, you're getting some exercise, and you're moving around, right? Your stress levels. Oh man. Your stress levels are important, because if you don't watch your stress level, you might be headed toward a heart attack. So I'm just going to put that there and leave it. Many high capacity women, and I consider myself a high capacity woman, ignore the physical signs of depletion until your body forces you to stop. And that leads to burnout. It could lead to illness. It leads to exhaustion. And these aren't random things. These are signals from your vessel. Okay, so I hope that is a good explanation of what exactly the vessel is, so that when we're talking later, when I'm teaching from the devotional or talking from the devotional, and every time you hear me use the word vessel, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those things. So why does vessel work even matter? Let me scroll up a little bit. Yeah. Why does it even matter? It matters because a lot of people think burnout happens because a person lacks discipline or purpose. And that's usually not the case. Most burned out people, they're actually highly committed folks. They care deeply, they serve deeply, they show up for other people consistently. The problem often, I'm not going to say always, because we're not going to talk about absolutes, but the problem often is that they were never taught how to recognize when they were getting depleted early enough. They weren't taught how to honor their limits. They weren't taught how to actually heal their vessel before they start giving again. They weren't taught to actually differentiate true calling from overfunctioning. They haven't rebuilt after they've experienced some sort of chronic stress or trauma. And that's why I created VesselWork, because VesselWork is going to provide the language and the structure for that process of healing. This framework is going to speak directly to several patterns that I see constantly in my work as a psychologist. I see chronic emotional exhaustion. I see burnout and compassion fatigue, and I talk about that in the devotional. I see trauma-driven overfunctioning, people pleasing. Oh, this one is a bad one. People pleasing and guilt-based service. So the only reason why you're serving is because you're trying to make everybody happy or you feel guilty. Okay. Identity loss related to roles and responsibilities. So now that you're an empty nester, me. But now that your kids are not in the home, who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore because I'm not a mother. I don't know who I am anymore because I'm no longer married. Those identity issues. Okay. And something I see particularly often in faith communities, I see people who love God deeply, but they feel spiritually exhausted. And that doesn't mean that their faith is weak. It often just means that their vessel has been neglected. They might have some cracks in there. They haven't been caring for their vessel, which is their body, which is them, their nervous system, those things that we just talked about. So here are the core elements of VesselWork. I'm going to scroll up. Yeah, right here. VesselWork is a healing process, and it goes through several stages. First is healing the depletion. So that's what one of the things that we talk about first. We got to heal that depletion. Then we have to acknowledge our exhaustion honestly. We can't hide it. We can't super spiritualize it. You can't be out here pretending that you're fine. Okay. The second thing we're going to be doing is reclaiming identity. You're going to begin to rediscover who you are beyond performance and beyond responsibility. The third thing that we're going to be working on is restoring your capacity. And this is where your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual reserves begin to rebuild. Fourth, we're going to realign you with your purpose. Because once your vessel is healthy again, you can actually start to re-engage in your calling, but in a sustainable way. We're not trying to be in our calling from a place of depletion. I don't think that we serve people well when we serve from a place of depletion. And finally, we're going to be talking about the overflow, which is a beautiful place to be. And we're going to talk about overflow because we're whole. Okay. And this is where service becomes joyful again. Giving is no longer draining because you're giving from the overflow. You're not giving from what you need to sustain your own life. So we want the natural overflow of a healthy life to be the result of the work that we're going to do with VesselWork. So for me, VesselWork wasn't just a theory, it was survival. There were seasons in my life when I was doing everything. I was running businesses, I was raising kids, I was serving in the church, I was helping everybody around me. And there was a time and a place where I realized something very important. I was being praised for my ability to give, but nobody was asking if I was okay. And there was a point where I had to make a decision. I had to refuse to drink the cultural and religious Kool-Aid that tells women that their value is measured by how much they sacrifice until depletion. I had to stop it. I had to outright say, I'm not doing that because that is not good for me. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't sustainable. And I don't believe that's what God intended for me either. And so I started working on that and I started documenting what I did. And now what VesselWork is the result of that. And I want to share that with you all. So in closing, if you've been feeling exhausted, if you feel like you've been carrying more than you can hold, if service has started to feel heavy instead of meaningful, just know that you're not broken. Your vessel just might need repair. And that's what VesselWork is all about. And so over the next several videos, I'm going to be teaching from my actual devotional. Feel free to pick it up if you'd like. But I'm going to be teaching this framework step by step, chapter by chapter. And if you want to walk through it, the deeper work with me, That's what the journal is for, and it's designed to guide you through the process personally. I can talk about the narratives that are in the chapters, but that work, the devotional prompts, that reflection that you're going to be doing, that's where the magic actually happens. But whether you choose the journal or not, my goal is simple. I want to help people stop demanding more from themselves, more from their vessel. And I want people to start taking better care of it, because that's where the healing starts. All right, y'all. That's it for today. I hope this helps, and I hope you choose to join me as we move forward discussing this VesselWork framework.